The hidden debt that brought down a billion-dollar empire. Michael Turner was once celebrated as the ultimate symbol of success in Silicon Valley. He was the kind of entrepreneur that magazines like Forbes and Bloomberg loved to feature. A visionary with a billion-dollar tech company, an inspiring story, and a smile that seemed to say nothing could ever go wrong. His startup was praised as the future of technology. Investors lined up to join in, and the media painted him as the next great American dreamer turned achiever. But success in the business world is rarely as perfect as it looks on glossy covers. Behind the scenes, pressure was building. Growth targets became harder to meet. Competition grew fiercer, and the cracks in his company's foundation started to widen. At first, they looked like small issues: delays in product launches, customer complaints, rising costs. Yet over time, those cracks turned into something impossible to ignore. And then came the turning point. Just 24 months after his company reached its peak, everything collapsed like a row of dominoes. The dream, the billions, the image of unstoppable success, all gone in what felt like the blink of an eye. Michael's story is a reminder: in business, nothing is guaranteed. The rise of Michael Turner's company was fueled not just by innovation, but also by a massive appetite for borrowed money. To expand quickly and stay ahead of competitors, the company took on hundreds of millions of dollars in loans from Wall Street banks and investment funds. On the surface, it looked like a brilliant move. Cash was flowing in, offices were opening around the world, and the company's valuation kept soaring. But there was one big problem. The money was borrowed, not earned. The company had no truly solid cash flow to support such ambitious growth. Revenues were promising but inconsistent, while expenses skyrocketed every single month. Payrolls, new product development, flashy marketing campaigns, and global expansion ate up every dollar before it could turn into profit. At first, no one seemed to notice. Investors were dazzled by the numbers on paper, and banks were eager to lend more. Michael himself believed the gamble would pay off once the company reached global scale. But deep down, the foundation was shaky. Without real income to balance the mountain of debt, the business was like a house built on sand, impressive to look at, but doomed to collapse with the first strong wave. The warning signs were there, but almost everyone chose to ignore them. Financial reports showed growing losses, debt piling up, and expenses that seemed to rise faster than revenue. Still, many small investors preferred to listen to the exciting promises of explosive growth instead of digging into the details. It felt easier and honestly more fun to believe in the dream than to confront the messy numbers. At investor meetings, charts were filled with colorful arrows pointing upward, and Michael Turner's confident speeches convinced the crowd that success was just around the corner. For everyday investors who wanted a piece of Silicon Valley magic, the story was irresistible. Why spend hours analyzing financial statements when the company was being praised on TV, in newspapers, and across social media? The truth, however, was hiding in plain sight. Cash burn was unsustainable, debt repayments were looming, and the supposed growth was often more projection than reality. A few skeptical voices raised concerns, but they were drowned out by the excitement. In the end, what should have been clear red flags were brushed aside as temporary challenges. By the time people realized the danger, it was already too late to turn back. The collapse did not happen overnight, but when it came, it felt sudden and brutal. As interest rates rose and the market cooled, Michael Turner's company could no longer keep up with its massive debt payments. Banks that once competed to lend money quickly tightened credit, leaving the company with no lifeline. Investors panicked, the stock price went into free fall, and soon the inevitable announcement arrived: bankruptcy. Behind the headlines, the human cost was devastating. Thousands of employees suddenly lost their jobs, with severance packages far smaller than they had hoped. For many, their 401k retirement accounts were tied to company stock, and in just weeks, years of savings seemed to vanish. Parents who had invested in the dream now faced the painful reality that the college funds they had set aside for their children were gone. It was more than just a corporate failure. It was a shockwave that rippled through ordinary households. Neighbors who once bragged about owning shares now avoided the topic. Local communities where the company had opened shiny new offices were left with empty buildings and broken promises. The empire that had symbolized unstoppable growth turned into a cautionary tale of how quickly fortunes can disappear. In the end, Michael Turner left his company not as a celebrated visionary, but under the weight of scandal. Once hailed as a financial star in Silicon Valley, he quickly became a cautionary symbol. His story was no longer about innovation and success, but about what happens when ambition runs faster than reality. The truth is that corporate bankruptcy or debt collapse is never just about one company. It is more like a wave that spreads far beyond the boardroom. Investors lose their savings, employees lose their jobs, and families lose the financial security they worked so hard to build. For many, the collapse of Turner's empire was not just another headline on Wall Street, but a painful hit to their everyday lives. The lesson is simple, yet often ignored. When we only focus on the spotlight, the magazine covers, and the inspiring speeches, we risk forgetting to check the numbers, the fundamentals, and the facts that actually matter. And when that happens, the price can be devastating. Turner's fall reminds us that behind every shiny promise, there should be accountability, transparency, and caution. Without them, success can vanish overnight, leaving behind only regret and broken trust. If you are investing in the U.S. market, remember one important truth: sweet promises can be dangerously misleading. Companies love to talk about rapid growth, groundbreaking innovation, and bright futures. But as Michael Turner's story shows us, words are cheap if the numbers don't back them up. Before putting your hard-earned money into any company, take the time to dig into the financial reports. Look at the debt levels, the cash flow, and the real ability of the business to survive tough times. Understand that corporate debt can be a double-edged sword. It can fuel growth, but it can also bring everything down when the tide turns. The smartest investors are not the ones who get carried away by hype, but the ones who prepare for the worst-case scenario. Because in reality, markets rise and fall, companies succeed and fail, but your savings and your future depend on the decisions you make today. That's why this channel exists. Subscribe now to discover more shocking stories of corporate bankruptcy and, more importantly, to learn how to protect your wallet before it's too late. Sometimes the best investment you can make is in knowledge and awareness. To me, corporate bankruptcies aren't just headlines, they're wake-up calls. When a billion-dollar company can collapse overnight, it shows us one thing: debt is a double-edged sword. That's why I believe every investor, including myself, must look beyond the hype, question the numbers, and protect what truly matters: our hard-earned money.